Go. Hi, this is Miss Litton, and this is my period 3 APBio class. Say hi. Hi. And we have some band members that took off early, and so this is for you. So before I get started, just because they missed the talk, what is our big takeaway of the discussion I just had? What do you need to start doing? Studying for your what? What can you use to study for it? That's right, because it's a lot of material and we need to start now, and I'd like you to come up with a plan this weekend. All right, perfect. So you just talked about the endosymbiotic hypothesis with your bio buddy. So let's go to our notes on that. Okay, eukaryotic cells started evolving maybe 2 billion years ago. Ancestral mitochondria and chloroplasts were once free-living prokaryotes. Mitochondria and chloroplasts are the right size. They have their own DNA. It's not packaged on histones. Do you remember there were histone proteins and non-histone proteins? Oldest bio buddy, differentiate between those two. Do you remember what they were used for? Do you remember how non-histones became part of those nucleosomes? Right? You wound the DNA, or excuse me, did I just say non-histones? What did I mean to say? Histones, sorry. Histones were the DNA wound on it to form the nucleosomes, and then the non-histone proteins are probably regulatory, right? Remember we talked about transcription factors and activators, remember all of that? Okay. And then they are self-replicating. They would divide by what? Binary fission. You're so smart, binary fission. They have two membranes. The outer membrane is like a eukaryote. And that would make sense because if it engulfed it, right, that would be the outer membrane. And then the inner is like the prokaryotes. All right, multicellularity about 1.4 billion years ago. The Ediacaran fossils, these are soft-bodied invertebrates. What does it mean to be invertebrate? Yeah, you don't have, not a shell, you don't have a backbone. Yeah. Okay, so these are soft-bodied, so they don't have a, oh, I understand now. They don't have a shell. I know why you said that now. They don't have an exoskeleton. Is that what you're meaning? Okay, soft bodies, they're very flat, very thin. And so that was the beginning. And then this is where we're going to start to transition out of the Precambrian time and go into our oldest era, which is what? Paleozoic. Good. All right. So now here is a cartoony, simplified geologic history for you to see. So Precambrian, it's a very short box here, but this is the longest period of time, right? Because when is this? When is the start time right here? 4.6. And then it ended about how long ago? And how are we remembering that? That's dinner time, right? That's about dinner time. In the Paleozoic era, you can see all the changes. You know who this is. Who's that? That's a trilobite. That's an index fossil. And then you can see fish and ferns and spiders. We'll get into that. Old and Paleozoic era, a lot, just life blossoming. And then the Paleozoic era ended about how long ago? 250 million years ago. And how are we going to remember that? School's out. And here are those three periods that I told you about. And we can remember that Jurassic because we think about dinosaurs. And then the Mesozoic era ended about how long ago? 65. And we're going to remember that because we drive our car. Good. And then that's still occurring now. And that's all about mammals and flowers. Perfect. So let's start here. Okay. So we can see the Precambrian time. This is a good chart because it kind of shows you what happened over time. But now here's your Cambrian period. And notice there's some yellow circles here recognizing the mass extinctions. There were 3 in the Paleozoic era, 5 mass extinctions overall. We humans may be contributing to the 6th extinction. Good. I mean, not good, but anyway. So when you look at the Paleozoic era, and you did your POGL, right? That was due. Okay, and those scores are already in your grades, I believe. Let's look at the trends. Let's start with plants. Okay, so in the Paleozoic era, where are we at right here? Marine what? Algae. Then we have plants on land, Algae's flourishing. Remember I told you one thing gains its tendency and then it takes off and then another thing comes in right behind it. So now we have non-vascular land plants. Non-vascular means they don't have xylem and phloem. Do you remember xylem transports water and phloem transports sugar? Did you learn that in like 7th or 8th grade? You had a little song you sang or something? Nobody remembers it? Okay. You know how we have arteries and veins? Plants have xylem and phloem. Okay? And so for them to be on land, their access to water is going to be in the ground. So they have to be able to transport that. That's xylem. And then phloem transports the sugars from photosynthesis. Okay? Or what's been stored in their roots. So these are non-vascular plants. Now we have seedless vascular plants. Now they have xylem and phloem. But remember seeds, remember we talked about the different kinds of mammals? And there's egg-laying mammals like monotremes. And then there are what? Marsupials that have a sac, right? And then we are what? Placental. Who's going to win that battle? Placental, because we protect our young, right? Okay, so these are seedless vascular plants. They don't have a protective seed. Okay, but then look, seedless plants are diversifying. Who's on the rise now? Seed plants. So now we're protected. Okay, and these first seed plants that you're looking at right here are going to become your gymnosperms. These are your big coal-forming forests. If you're burning gas in your car, this is where it's coming from. Now, gymnosperms are like Christmas trees or Hanukkah bushes, okay? And if you've ever looked inside a pine cone and you can see those seeds in there and you get pine nuts, yeah? Okay? They are called naked seeds because they don't have any fruit around them. Like if you think about an apple doesn't have naked seeds. It has a thickened ovaries, right? Because when you're eating an apple, you're eating an apple tree's ovaries. That's fruit, okay? So these gymnosperms are naked seeds, no fruit around it. So you're going, that's why I say when I teach you the bookends, we're starting at algae, we're ending at gymnosperms. So you want to think, oh, what all had to happen? Remember, I'm over here in the Paleozoic era. So I'm telling you, in this Paleozoic era, when did it start? When? 542 million. Plant-wise, we're going from algae, right? We're up on land. We're non-vascular plants. Now we're vascular plants. And now we have seeds. And now we're these big, tall gymnosperms. Does that make sense? So that's why I have you learn the bookends. Let's look at the animals, okay? So animals, we're at invertebrates, right? And that phyla. And then we have the first chordates. Vertebrata is a subphylum of Chordata. Okay, and then we have these jawless fishes, and like the big one is Agnatha, and I remember that because Agnatha, I have no jaws, and so they are just like this open mouth fish thing that attaches, and then we have some invertebrates spreading. So we have invertebrates, and then invertebrates are going on the rise. We have now jawed fish. We had our first vertebrates here. Jawed fish diversify. We've got insects. And who's evolving from the fish right here? Amphibians are evolving from the fish. So they're still tied to water, but only for sacs and eggs. You know, so they need to go back to the water to protect their gametes. And then look at the amphibians are diversifying. There's tons of them, but then who's starting to go on the rise? Reptiles. So now your reptiles are starting to diversify by the end of the Paleozoic era. So when I bookend it, we're going from invertebrates all the way to what? Reptiles. See what I mean? But you know the pathway that you need to go through on that. So if we had a sketch artist, they might draw something like that. Okay. We know about these guys are trilobites, right? These are an early arthropod, and that's really a big time during the Cambrian period, so that helps us when we're dating. So spiders and centipedes preceded the appearance of insects on land. I went and grabbed this picture, and he's saying looks good, but he is not here on the planet yet, right? So he doesn't come on the scene until what era? Mesozoic era, yeah, is when you have the beginnings of them. Wings on insects allowed them. Now remember we talked about adaptive. Yeah, you got wings. All of a sudden now it's not like this is your little area. You can fly to a new area and you can spread out into these different areas. And the evolution of winged insects was huge for what's going to happen now, which is we're going to have the beginnings of flowers. Because flowers need insects to what? pollinate them, right? So there's some coevolution there as well. Again, you have at this point, these are some drawings of what it might look like. Okay, so let's get our notes. Oh, and one more. And our coal, where our forests come from. All right, so on our notes, let's go to Paleozoic era. We have 542 to 251 million years ago. The Cambrian animals, all life traces its ancestry to the Cambrian explosion. Animals had protective exoskeletons and fossilized well. Trilobite is a key index fossil. Where is my molecular clock? How did I skip over all of that? We need to back up just a little bit. Here are trilobites. Okay, molecular clock. Okay, so we're not measuring time in seconds. When you look at molecules, you're looking at change in molecules, and a change would be a mutation. So if we were the same species right here, we were all the same species, then we would have the same mutations in our DNA, yes? But if we spread out, radiated out, then I'm going to be in a different environment. I'm not interbreeding with them. I would have my new mutations, right? And then we would each have our new mutations. So if you know that typically 5 mutations would occur every million years, 5 total mutations in your DNA, then how long ago did 2 organisms diverge if there are 20 mutational differences between them? You think? Check with your Bible to see if they agree with you. And tell them why you came up with that answer, because some people are like, what? Does that make sense to you? Yeah, so if our DNA is the same, but if we've accrued 20 differences between us and we know the rate of a mutation, then that helps you to identify how long ago you diverged. So on your notes, go to the molecular clock. It's based on the principle that mutations in certain parts of the genome occur at a fixed rate and are not tied to what? Natural selection. So the number of base pair differences indicates how long 2 species have been evolving separately. Yes?
So will humans look different or have different mutations 2 million years from now or whatever?
Possibly, yeah. Yeah, possibly. You had the invasion of land, which I showed you pictures of. And in the invasion of land, you went from algae all the way up to gymnosperms, right? And so in all those changes, incremental changes that I showed you, and animals, we went from invertebrates to what? Yeah, to reptiles. To reptiles. Okay. So on your notes, plants, algae to ferns to gymnosperms. I would make algae and gymnosperms bold because those are your bookends. And then on invertebrates for animals, I didn't put animals in front of invertebrates. You should put animals. Went from invertebrates to arthropods to vertebrates to fish to amphibians to early reptiles. You have all that? Yes, yes? All right. Okay, boom, 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 boom. Okay, we're at the Mesozoic era in the middle. Okay, so let's analyze what's going on in the Mesozoic era. Okay, notice you have 2 more extinctions right here. You got them? Now what we see above, here's your Mesozoic era with the 3 periods, but above it, what do you see? That's all the Cenozoic era. Okay, so I'm just going to hit both of these at once. So here in the Triassic period, conifers are gymnosperms, okay, and cycads. And then who's starting to, so conifers are ascending, but who's starting to show up now? Yeah, flowering plants. They're still spreading and conifers are persisting. So this is the age of the gymnosperms, but flowering plants are on the rise. If you look at the Cenozoic era, you see flowering, forests, modern families of flowers. You got grasslands, you have herbs. So you can see all of that. And then humans' influence on life, right? So those are your plants. If we go into our animals, we can see in the Mesozoic era, what do we have right here that's starting to appear? And we're starting to get what? Dinosaurs. The dinosaurs are flourishing, birds are appearing, and now placental mammals. So that's big. So we have the beginning of our placental mammals. When you look in the Cenozoic era, what do we have right here? And we also have herbivores and carnivores. All modern orders of mammals are existing. We've got browsing mammals, we've got primates, ape-like, first hominids appear, age of mammals, modern humans, and then age of Homo sapiens up there at the top. Okay, so when you would take a look at it, maybe it would look something like this. You know, the trees. Some of you have cycads in your house, right, or around your house, still existing today. Oh, I'm a highlighter. No, I'm not. Go away, highlighter. So then you have therapsids. Okay, so this is your transition between your dinosaurs and your mammals. They're showing up. You have your age of dinosaurs. You have your early placental mammals. And then I think Miss Fowler shows you this. The real reason dinosaurs become extinct. Did she show you that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and then you have your flowering plants starting to show up on the scene. For perspective, okay, so here's Triassic. These are the dinosaurs first, in the first period. Okay, here's the Jurassic period. You recognize some of these, I'm sure. Then the last period of the Mesozoic era is the Cretaceous. So this is early Cretaceous and late Cretaceous. These are the kind of dinosaurs that you had around. All right, good. Let's write some notes down about the Mesozoic era. Plants, you have gymnosperms and the beginnings of angiosperms. Animals, you have reptiles to early mammals. Reptiles to early mammals. Okay, and then now we're in the Cenozoic era. So these could have been some of the animals you would see during the Cenozoic era. Like I said before, you start to see those primates, okay, and you're evolving into man. Okay, we know about the Ice Age, right? Okay. Now, on your notes, Cenozoic era, when did that start? 65 million years ago. So we went from plants, we went to angiosperms to herbs. Animals went mammals to humans. Also a time of megafauna, giant ground sloths, wolves, bison, mammoths that became extinct, possible to a changing colder climate, and hunting by humans. All right, and then this part right here is going to talk a little bit about the geology, because the geology can affect the biology, and the biology can affect the geology, yes? So when we talk about the geology affecting the biology, we're going to think about continental what? Yeah, continental drift. We're going to look that the continents change their location. If the continents change their location, then the organisms that are adapted to them is going to change, right? That's why you have fossils of amphibians in Antarctica. So because the geology changed, the biology changed as well. But we have also seen the reverse, where the biology changes the geology. What did I show you today in that movie? The snow globe Earth, right? And so that's because those cyanobacteria were generating so much what? Oxygen, that it got rid of all the greenhouse gases, and then the Earth became very, very what? Cold. Okay? And then the geology changed it back because of the outgassing from what? Volcanoes. So the geology affects the biology affects the geology. It goes back and forth. Okay, so on your continental drift, it explains why several different continents mirror each other and have shared geologic structures. It explains the unique distribution and patterns of several fossils. So when you look here, this is a type of fern, and when these ferns were evolving, okay, that was back in the Paleozoic era, right? When the ferns were evolving, all the continents were still together. And so you can see that they could spread from one to another because they weren't apart. It also explains the unique mammalian diversity on different continents. So number one, just in case you missed it, explains why several different continents mirror each other and have shared geologic structures. And then number two, unique distribution patterns of several fossils. And three, explains several unique mammalian diversity on different continents. Because our era where the mammals diversified the greatest, what era was that? Cenozoic era, right? And when did the Cenozoic era start? And were the continents together anymore? No, that's why we have these unique mammals, and we chalk that up into what piece of evidence for evolution? Biogeographical, right? Okay. Now, yes. Okay, plate tectonics. You know all about plate tectonics. You have wide drifting plate tectonics when two continents meet. Ping pong back and forth, A, B, and C right there on your notes. So subduction zones, the forward edge of one plate sinks below another. That's why you have volcanoes and deep sea ridges. Current Mount St. Helens. From farther, not current, would be Yosemite. Okay, explain what this is. When two continents rise, they will form mountains, like if there's a convergent boundary. And this is a transform boundary, the San Andreas Fault, when they're sliding past one another. Okay, and here's another view of the San Andreas Fault from above. Pretty clear. Yeah. Yeah. So you remember you've got the Pacific and the North American plate, which are trying to slide past one another. And the problem is they get caught up. It's not like even smooth edges. It's been greased up, right? So they try to get past, and that causes buckling. And then that buckling wants to release, and we call that release a earthquake. It would be better if we had lots of what? Small earthquakes to slowly release it than to go like that. That's pretty major. All right, now, the other thing we want to pay attention to are those mass extinctions. And that's why I had you do a pogo over it. Not it. This slide is yours. Go ahead. And switch one more time. I annotated a picture from your book with these, but go ahead and talk about that. I've annotated to show why the extinction, what they think could have caused it. All right, so on your mass extinctions, I gave you most of the notes there, but underneath 5 mass extinctions, 3 in the Paleozoic era, ending with the Great Dying. What percentage of the species died off? 83% of all species. Okay, and 2 in the Mesozoic, ending with 50% of all the species. When extinctions occur, new habitats open for other species. For example, extinction of the dinosaurs was followed by the rapid evolution of mammals. That is called what? Starts with an A. Adaptive radiation. You don't have those predators anymore. You don't have to keep hiding underneath the rocks. You can get out there, get some business done, meet some new mammals, and kind of spread out. Yes?
How is there mass extinction by continental drift if continental drift is like really slow?
Probably it is very, very slow, but it could be breaking up a certain habitat where certain organisms changed. Also, over time, you had mass extinctions because you didn't live in the same environment that you were. So you can have a mass extinction. It doesn't mean it's happening overnight. It's taking a long time, but it's still a mass extinction. Something like an asteroid or a meteorite, that's going to happen a lot, especially if there's dust in the air, it's blocking sunlight, and the plants are dying. So once the plants die, then your herbivores are going to start to die off, and once your herbivores start to die off, then your carnivores are going to die off. Does that make sense? Okay. and then this just shows you those 5 mass extinctions. Okay, hi. This shows you those 5 mass extinctions. And then I had questions built in here, but they aren't loading. Maybe they'll load. I'm going to save that for the review because I want to make sure we get done, and I have a video to show you. So sorry, I'm skipping that. I have some terms I want you to review, and I want you to ping pong back and forth. Not all of these are found in your book, but these are things I want you to know. So slate, you do the odds. Blue, you do the evens. All right, so we learned about homeotic genes and Hox genes already, right? These are homeotic genes are those master regulatory genes, and then Hox genes, those are the ones that are studied, remember, that can code for those transcription factors, little changes, big effects, right? Whether or not you have legs, what kind of legs you have. Heterochrony. Chrony, what word should you think of? Are you going to ask me a question?
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
How did the chicken function without legs?
Well, it would be an earlier version of that chicken. Yeah. Okay, so chrony, what does that remind you of? Chronology, right? What does hetero mean? Different chronology. So changing the rate of development. So for us, our phalange stopped here, but if you still had those genes turned on, it could be longer if you had a mutation in that, or just how long you expressed that gene. Then you could maybe be a bat with wings, or lost entirely and be a whale. Exaptations. So you evolve for one purpose, but it gets co-opted and it can do something else. And so maybe it started off for warmth, but then it ended up turning into something you could use to fly. And then Evo-Devo is just this whole large field where you're looking at evolutionary biology and natural selection, how things change over time, but you're tying it to development. So this is where I have a video that I would like you to watch. And some of this you're going to know really well, and some of it not as much. And I'm going to stop this right now because this belongs to somebody else, but I encourage you to watch this video. Okay, have a good day.